Welcome, welcome, welcome everybody. We are back. It is new bike day once again. We're bringing you along for a first ride of the new 170 mil front and rear 29er high pivot idler pulley equipped Norco Range. We are here on the 170 mil 29-inch wheeled high pivot idler pulley wonder job from Norco, the new Range, completely redesigned for the new year. This thing has proven to be quite a weapon for those seeking a bump eating, enduro ready, downhill track eating trail bike. We got some fun stuff to share today. We're up here at Mount Bachelor. We've put quite a few laps in. We got a few more to go. Stick around to see what we love about the bike, a little critique we've found so far, and if this might be the right bike for you. Stay tuned. When we sat down to talk with Norco engineers and some of their design team about the new bike, there was a few key things that they really kept honing in on. Safety, right? Rider safety on the trail, rider isolation, and creating the best bike that they could to get riders going fast and confident in the best way possible. So a lot of things changed to make that happen. One of the most notable things is going to a high pivot with an idler system, something that we've seen other brands doing. The Orem is one of the other Norco bikes that features it. It's something that's not new to Norco, but something that is new to the Range, which was initially launched back in 2012. It was kind of like a do-it-all, aggressive, all-mountain. Enduro wasn't really a category because there wasn't enduro racing just yet, but it was the aggressive do-it-all bike. And as things changed, as the Shore recently was launched, you know, things just continue to evolve in the mountain bike space, and that gave Norco the opportunity to really design the new Range as an enduro race machine. This bike has the chops to pedal, it has the ability to descend, and it is a very well-rounded 170 mil 29er. Granted, the fact that it is 170 millimeters and a 29er, just because it's well-rounded for that category doesn't mean it's going to be the best bike for you. Obviously, you got to have the terrain that warrants that slack of a head tube angle, that much travel, etc. You know, if that's not you, maybe the Sight is a little better option, as that's a little shorter travel version and will do a lot better on a majority of trails that people probably ride day in and day out. But enough about that. How does this thing perform? Well, so far, right, it's awesome. We spent very little time with the setup. Granted, Norco has a really awesome ride aligned program, so we filled out the form just like any customer could. Rider skill level, rider weight, terrain preference, and they shipped a bike pretty close to dialed. From there, it was just a matter of fine-tuning air pressure, couple clicks here and there on rebound compression, and this thing was off to the races. Like, we had a blast. It loves the chunk. It loves eating up chunky stuff. It was very smooth. There's a couple of fadeaway, you know, paver jumps that land into roots and braking bumps, and I thought I was on a downhill bike. It was so smooth landing into that stuff. And then, you know, when it was time to pedal up a service road and go session a bit for a photo, even with the shock open, I was really impressed with how it climbed for what it is. And then when I flipped the shock lever, it got even better. So really awesome job there, creating a bike that can pedal well for what it is. Obviously, if you are an enduro racer, you're gonna have to climb. It's not just about hopping on a chairlift or doing shuttle laps all day. Even though we really like doing that, the Norco engineers knew that you are going to have to pedal, and this bike does pedal well. Some of the things to note on the bike obviously are the high pivot and that idler pulley. And what that means is the bike is going to get out of the way of impacts a little bit better than some suspension design. That's a reason why a lot of brands are making the switch there. Traditionally, high pivot bikes have a nice rearward axle path. They do well in hitting square edge bumps, but the downside was that there was a lot of other drawbacks, namely in pedaling characteristics and such. So by running that idler, brands are able to now isolate and tune in anti-squat to make the bikes pedal, accelerate, and feel a lot better and livelier without the drawbacks of not having that idler on a high pivot bike. So this bike is definitely going to have a major difference compared to previous ranges. The sensitivity, again, that isolation, right? The feeling of the wheel getting out of the way is definitely noted out on the trail. So some of the other updates include some geometry changes. Our size large has a 480 millimeter reach. Each size has a 30 millimeter increment in size, or length, I should say, in the size. Like the rest of their bikes in the ride-aligned concept, rear center changes, seat tube angle changes, head tube angle changes as the bikes get bigger or smaller. And the theory there is that it takes riders of different dimensions and centers them more over the bike so that their weight distribution, center of gravity, and contact patch is equal over the tires, no matter what size bike they're riding or how long their torso, limbs, or body might be. Our size large has a 63.25 degree head tube angle. The extra large has a 63, and the medium has a 63.5. From there, your seat tube angle is 77 degrees, so gives you a pretty good, efficient pedaling spot. Very long dropper post, which is awesome. That actually surprised us when we just hopped on the bike and dropped it, and felt like we just kept falling down. So really awesome to see such a long dropper post on there. Well, we've been talking really highly about this bike so far, and that's because it has a lot of awesome traits. One thing that we've noticed so far that is not super awesome, we only hit it once so far, and that was climbing up kind of like a stair-steppy shelf bit of trail where there was a big rock, and again on like a downed tree is this lower link. There's a pretty stout and very sturdy skid plate. But this lower link, as you can see, it protrudes down. As the suspension compresses, it does kind of push up and back and out of the way. But when you're climbing, particularly slow stuff and kind of scrapping up the hill, if there is a big rock shelf, doesn't have to be that big, as you can see. I mean, that's not super high off the ground, but we did impact this once or twice so far in our testing, and that could be something to note if you're someone who really spends a lot of time climbing that type of terrain, right? If you've got a lot of larger downed trees or shelfy, like stair-steppy large rocks, this low clearance could be a factor for you. That being said, a majority of people probably are going to be either climbing fire roads at trail centers, shuttling, chairlifting, whatever that might be. So, they may not be living for the techie climbs on this thing. So nevertheless, aside from that issue, have not really found very much to complain about this bike yet, other than we are not huge fans of these deity bars. We've been getting them on quite a few test bikes lately, and we've yet to ride a bike with those bars where our hands don't get fatigued and feel really tired. So I think those bars are just too stiff. They don't have maybe enough tuned compliance in them, whatever it might be. So that's really our only two critiques on this bike so far. Geo feels good. There are some situations in some flatter corners where the front end feels a little bit long. The reach isn't terribly long. The head tube angle isn't super slack. I mean, it is pretty freaking slack. It is a 170 bike, but even though it's a little bit shorter, I guess you could say, at 480, 475 is kind of my preferred reach. That's what I love on bikes. So it's only about 5 mils longer than my kind of dream reach, and a 63 head angle, I guess, is a touch on the slack side. But again, they wanted this to be a fully downhill track capable enduro race bike, and I think they've achieved their goal. So the big factor really is that the type of bike you need? And if it is, this could be a bike that's really worth checking out. We're definitely gonna be putting a lot more time on it. Again, we don't have nearly enough time to see how everything holds up, how it performs in a variety of terrain, but we are looking forward to doing that, and we'll be reporting back in the future. So for now, that's what you get, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed our first ride on this thing. Killer new bike from Norco. The Range definitely excels in a lot of chunky conditions and terrain. Loves riding fast, loves to hit and jump. So nice job, Norco. So yeah, that is the new Norco Range in a nutshell. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the first ride. Thanks to Norco for getting this thing out to us just a few days before the launch so we can get some time on it. Very excited to put some more laps on this thing, take it out for some big backcountry rides, and really see where it shines, and if we develop any issues worth noting in our long-term review. Stay tuned, and we hope to see you guys out on the trails.